"Pretend to be my wife," the millionaire doctor whispered, but she was shocked by his one request. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The hospital corridor was silent except for the faint echo of footsteps and the steady beep of monitors behind glass doors. Under the cold fluorescent lights, he stood there, Dr. Adrian Cole. Tall, immaculate, the kind of man whose presence seemed carved from discipline and quiet authority. Yet that night, something in his face had cracked. His tie hung loose, and his voice trembled slightly when he spoke. "Pretend to be my wife," he whispered. She blinked, thinking she had misheard him. What did you just say?" His eyes searched hers, desperate but calm. "Please, just for today." Maya Carter, an administrative assistant barely making enough to cover her mother's medical bills, felt her pulse skip. The request sounded insane, even cruel. She had seen this man on every hospital poster, the miracle surgeon, the millionaire doctor who rebuilt hearts but never gave away his own. "You want me to pretend to be your wife? Why me?" Adrian swallowed hard. "Because my mother thinks I already got married. If she finds out I lied, she will refuse the surgery. She will rather die than think her son is still alone." For a moment, Maya just stared at him. The machines behind them hummed like a metronome, counting down her disbelief. "Dr. Cole, I am just an employee. You barely know me." "I know enough," he said softly. "You are kind to her. You made her laugh. She believes you are the woman in the picture she saw on my phone. Please, just for one day. Help me give her peace before the operation." Maya's chest tightened. His mother, lying upstairs in the cardiac unit, had smiled at her earlier that morning and called her the girl with the gentle eyes. She remembered the old woman's hand trembling as she clutched a rosary. Now, this man was asking her to become that hope. "What exactly do you need me to do?" Adrian hesitated, then reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a simple gold band. It gleamed faintly in the sterile light. "Just stand by me. Hold my hand. Let her believe we belong together." She looked down at the ring, then back at him. "You have to be kidding." "I wish I were," he whispered. His voice dropped lower, raw, human. "Please, Maya, I do not have anyone else." The air between them thickened. Maya's throat ached with all the reasons she should say no professional boundaries, humiliation, the absurdity of pretending to marry a man worth millions. Yet behind his calm mask, she saw something fragile, something real, fear. Finally she spoke, her voice barely above a breath. "If I say yes, what happens after today?" He looked at her for a long time, then said the words that froze her heart. "Then you walk away. But there is one request you must promise me before you agree." Quote. Maya frowned. "What request?" Adrian stepped closer, his scent faintly of antiseptic and winter air. "No matter what happens in that room, no matter what I decide, you do not stop me. You do not argue with my medical judgment." She did not understand. "You mean, if something goes wrong with your mother?" His jaw tightened. "I mean, if it is time to let her go. She has suffered enough. I cannot bear to watch her in pain. Promise me you will not interfere." Her lips parted, but no words came. It was a doctor's voice, cold but breaking at the edges. He extended the ring again, waiting. For one breathless moment, the entire hospital seemed to stand still, the white walls, the faint hum of air vents, even the blinking lights on the monitor. Maya took the ring, her hand trembling. "You are asking a lot from someone you barely know." Adrian's eyes softened. "I am asking for mercy, not love." The elevator doors opened at the end of the hall. A nurse called out, "Dr. Cole, they are ready in pre-op." He turned back to her, voice low, urgent. "Please, Maya, just until she goes into surgery." And against every instinct of logic and pride, she nodded. As she slipped the ring onto her finger, the gold felt heavier than metal. It felt like a secret one that could break them both. When they stepped into the patient's room together, the old woman's eyes lit up instantly. "Oh, Adrian, you brought her." Quote. Maya forced a smile, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear her own voice. "Yes, ma'am, I am here." The old woman reached out her frail hand and touched Maya's cheek. "You are even prettier than I imagined. Take care of my boy." Maya looked at Adrian. For a moment, The act did not feel like acting at all. Outside the window, the winter sun slipped behind the skyline, casting long shadows across the hospital floor. Somewhere between truth and lie, a story had begun one neither of them could control. Maya could not sleep that night. The gold band still circled her finger, glinting faintly under the cheap lamp in her small apartment. Outside, rain tapped against the window in restless rhythm, as if echoing her heartbeat. She turned her phone over and over in her hand, wondering if she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Dr. Adrian Cole had returned to the surgical wing after his mother fell asleep. He had not said another word to her, only left her standing by the elevator with the ring still on. The image replayed in her head again and again, his voice low, his eyes full of exhaustion. Now, at 2 a.m, she sat at her kitchen table surrounded by unpaid bills and insurance letters. Her mother's name was on every page. Past due, denied, final notice. She pressed her palms to her eyes, whispering to herself, "Maybe just one day will not ruin my life." The next morning, the hospital looked different. Maybe it was her imagination, but the air seemed heavier. Nurses nodded politely, and some smiled when they saw the ring on her finger. Word traveled fast, even without a single announcement. Adrian met her in the staff corridor, dressed in his white coat again, mask of professionalism back in place. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "I did not think you would." "I did not think I would either," she replied, her voice steady though her stomach churned. "You said it would only be for today." He nodded. "For today. But there is something I need to explain before we walk into that room." She folded her arms. "What now?" "My mother's surgery is scheduled for tomorrow morning. She asked to have dinner with us tonight in the private ward garden. She wants to bless our marriage." Maya froze. "Dinner. Blessing. You mean pretend to be your wife again in front of her and everyone else?" He met her eyes. "In front of her and a few members of the hospital's donor board. They think I am finally settling down. It matters to the foundation. If they believe I have a stable family, the funding for her operation stays secure." Her heart sank. It was no longer a one-night lie. It was a performance with real consequences. "What if they find out it is fake?" she asked. Adrian's jaw tightened. "They will not. I have handled the paperwork. You only need to act naturally. After tomorrow, this will be over." Maya wanted to argue, to throw the ring at him and walk away. But then she thought of her mother still lying in the general ward, coughing through the night because she could not afford the specialized care. She thought of the number on the bill, the one that might vanish with a single signature from the man standing in front of her. "What do I get out of this?" she asked softly. He looked surprised at the bluntness. "What do you want?" "I want my mother's medical debt cleared. And I want her transferred to the same facility where your mother is. She deserves to live, too." Adrian hesitated, then gave a slow nod. "Done. You have my word." She exhaled, the sound trembling. "You are asking me to sell my honesty," he said quietly. "I am asking you to save my mother's peace of mind." Silence hung between them until Maya finally said, "Then we both get what we need." Quote, By evening, she stood in front of a mirror inside the hospital's staff locker room. A stylist from the public relations department someone Adrian had arranged was pinning her hair into soft curls and adjusting a cream-colored dress borrowed from the hospital's wardrobe closet. It was elegant but modest, chosen to make her look like the wife of a respected doctor. She barely recognized herself. The girl in the mirror looked calm, graceful, the kind of woman who belonged beside a man like him. But beneath that calmness, her pulse raced. When Adrian appeared at the doorway, the stylist stepped back silently. He looked at Maya for a long moment. For the first time, there was a hint of warmth in his usually reserved expression. "You look," he paused, searching for the right word, "exactly how I imagined she would look at peace." Maya turned slightly. "You mean your mother?" He nodded. "Yes. She always said she wanted to see me smile again before she went into surgery. Tonight, I will try." The dinner was arranged in the hospital's rooftop garden, strings of lights swaying in the breeze, the scent of rosemary and disinfectant oddly mixing in the air. A small group of board members sat around the table, glasses of sparkling water catching the glow. When Adrian and Maya walked in hand, murmurs of approval rippled through the group. The old woman, propped up in her wheelchair, smiled wide. "My son and his beautiful wife," she whispered proudly. Maya felt the weight of the lie settle over her shoulders like a heavy coat. But when the old woman reached out to touch her hand, something in her chest softened. The woman's fingers were cold, fragile. "You have kind eyes," she said. "Take care of him. He forgets to eat when he is worried." "I will," Maya whispered back. The dinner moved with quiet grace. Adrian answered polite questions, told stories about how they had met, each word crafted with precision. When someone asked where they had gone for their honeymoon, he hesitated for half a second, then Maya jumped in. "We eloped," she said lightly. "Doctors do not have time for big weddings." The table erupted in laughter. Adrian turned to her with a faint, surprised smile. For the first time that night, it looked real. As the evening ended, his mother squeezed both their hands and said, "Promise me one thing when this is over. Stay together. Do not let the world take you apart." Maya felt her throat close. She wanted to tell the truth, to say there was no together after tomorrow. But Adrian's hand tightened around hers, a silent plea to keep the illusion alive. When the guests left, and the lights dimmed, Maya stood alone under the soft glow of the rooftop lamps. Adrian walked over, his expression unreadable. "You handled that well," he said. "Thank you." She turned to him, voice barely a whisper. "You keep saying thank you, but I am not sure either of us will be able to forget this." For a moment, neither of them moved. The city hummed below, the air thick with the scent of rain and unanswered questions. And somewhere deep inside, Maya realized something terrifying. Pretending to be his wife was starting to feel less like a lie and more like the truth she could never have. The next morning arrived gray and heavy, the kind of light that made even the polished hospital floors look cold. Maya woke before sunrise, the echo of last night's dinner still replaying in her mind, the laughter, the compliments, the gentle way Adrian's mother had held her hand as if she were already part of the family. But the warmth had vanished as soon as the lights went out. Now, only the silence remained. When Maya stepped into the administrative wing, Adrian was already there. He stood by the window, sleeves rolled up, the early light brushing across his face. He looked exhausted, as if he had not slept at all. On the table beside him lay a thick folder of documents and a silver pen. "Good morning," she said cautiously. He turned, his expression composed again, distant. "Good morning, Maya. We need to talk before the surgery team arrives." Her heart quickened. "Is something wrong with your mother?" "No," he said quietly. "Not yet. But we need to make everything official before the donors arrive this afternoon. They expect to see the paperwork." She frowned, moving closer. "Paperwork? You mean about us?" He nodded once. "It is a temporary marital agreement. A legal arrangement so the hospital's public relations department can document the story properly. It will protect you as well." Maya stared at him, the words "legal arrangement" hitting harder than she expected. "You really thought of everything, did you not?" He did not flinch. "This is how people in my world make sure things do not fall apart. We write contracts." He slid the folder toward her. Inside were typed pages full of legal language and bullet points. She skimmed the lines, her eyes catching on the clauses. No personal or physical contact outside public appearances. Attend 5 hospital events as the spouse of Dr. Cole. No discussion of the agreement with media or staff. Confidentiality binding for 6 months after termination. And near the bottom, in smaller print, "The second party shall not interfere with the medical decisions of Dr. Adrian Cole, particularly regarding the care of his mother." She set the folder down slowly. "That last line, you really put it in writing." He met her eyes. "It is important. I cannot have anyone questioning my judgment during surgery." "You mean me?" she said. He stayed silent. Maya took a deep breath. "You know, this might sound crazy, but it almost feels like you are paying me to be quiet, not to help you." His jaw tightened. "That is not what this is." "Then what is it, Adrian? Because right now, it looks like a very expensive lie." He stepped forward, his voice low. "My mother has lived her entire life believing that family is what heals. If this lie keeps her calm enough to survive the operation, then it is worth it." Maya looked down at the table. The ring still sat heavy on her finger, a symbol that felt less romantic by the minute. "And what happens after, when she wakes up and realizes, I am not really your wife?" He hesitated, then said, "She will never know. By then I will tell her we decided to live abroad. She will not have to see me alone again." The simplicity of his answer broke something inside her. It was not arrogance. It was loneliness disguised as logic. Maya picked up the pen, turning it in her hand. "And what do I get in return?" His tone softened. "Financial security for your mother, full coverage of her treatment, And when this is done, a position at the hospital foundation, if you want it." She almost laughed, though there was no humor in her voice. "You make it sound like a business transaction," he replied quietly. "Because it is. That is the only way I know how to keep things from falling apart." She stared at the blank signature line for a long time. Outside, the hum of hospital life carried on, phones ringing, trolleys moving, a nurse calling for a chart. Normal life, while she stood on the edge of a decision that was anything but normal. Finally, she signed her name. The pen left a trembling mark, dark and final. Adrian took the folder, checked the pages, and slid them into his briefcase. "Thank you," he said softly. "You have no idea what this means." Maya forced a small smile. "I have some idea. It means we are both liars now." He looked at her for a moment, but instead of replying, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "For you, this is not payment. It is a transfer notice. Your mother's new room will be ready in an hour." Her breath caught. She unfolded the paper. The hospital's stamp confirmed that her mother was being moved to the same wing as his mother, into a private suite with full coverage. The promise had been real. When she looked up, Adrian was watching her with a quiet sincerity she had not seen before. "I keep my word," he said simply. For the first time, she believed him. Later that day, as she helped her mother settle into the new room, Maya's chest ached with a strange mixture of gratitude and guilt. Her mother smiled, unaware of the truth, saying, "You see, sweetie, good things come when you meet good people." Maya bit her lip, holding back tears. She wanted to say that the man she was pretending to love was the reason her mother now had a real chance to live, but she could not. That evening, Adrian called her to the surgical conference room for a quick rehearsal. "We need to appear together tomorrow," he explained. "When the press arrives for the foundation statement, they will want to see us side by side." She nodded, feeling the weight of the contract in her bag. "You have already scripted everything, have you not?" He looked at her with a faint smile. "Only the parts that can be controlled." Maya met his gaze, the air between them taut with something that had nothing to do with performance. "And the parts that cannot?" Adrian's voice lowered, almost to a whisper. "That is where the real risk begins." Neither of them moved. The distance between truth and pretense was closing fast, and for the first time, Maya wondered which one of them would break the rules first, the man who refused to feel, or the woman who was beginning to. The next few days moved like a montage of quiet rehearsals and restless nights. Every morning, Maya arrived early to the hospital, her ID badge clipped neatly beside the gold band that now sat permanently on her finger. Every evening, she left under the soft glow of the emergency lights, her steps echoing down the long, sterile hallways. She had become part of a performance that no one knew was a lie. Adrian guided her through everything. He trained her on how to hold her posture, how to speak with calm confidence, how to smile for photographs without looking forced. The hospital's public relations team arranged a short interview for the upcoming foundation gala. The two of them would appear together for the press, the young doctor and his devoted wife. During lunch breaks, Adrian would find her in the cafeteria, away from the noise, teaching her the subtle gestures that made a couple look natural. "When we walk in," he said, "stand just half a step behind me. That way, when I turn to look at you, it seems protective, not staged." Maya tried to laugh, but the sound came out nervous. "You make it sound like an operation." His lips curved slightly. "It is. Only this one is about appearances, not anatomy." The first test came sooner than expected. A senior donor arrived unannounced to visit Adrian's mother, bringing along a photographer from the local news. Maya had just finished reviewing documents in the volunteer office when a nurse whispered, "Dr. Cole is asking for you, now." When she entered the private ward, Adrian was standing beside his mother's bed, his hand extended to her. His expression was calm, but his eyes were sharp with urgency. "There you are, my love. Mr. Dawson here wanted to meet the woman who finally made me slow down." The donor laughed, a large man with a booming voice. "So, you are the famous Mrs. Cole. My wife says every great doctor needs someone who can make him rest." Maya's mind went blank, but she smiled as Adrian had taught her. "He is still learning," she said lightly. "Sometimes I have to hide his phone so he actually eats." Quote, laughter filled the room, and for a brief moment, the tension dissolved. Even Adrian's mother smiled from her bed, her frail hands folded neatly over a blanket. After the visitors left, Adrian turned to Maya, his tone softening. "You handled that well." She exhaled, her heart still racing. "You could have warned me." "There was no time," he said. In surgery, you improvise or you lose the patient. She gave a half smile. And here, you improvise or you lose the lie. Cloak. His gaze lingered on her longer than it should have. Something like that. That evening, the hospital's stylist returned to prepare Maya for the official photo shoot. The gala announcement would feature their portrait, a marriage built on compassion and hope. She wore a simple navy dress that fit her perfectly, paired with a small pearl necklace. When Adrian stepped into the room in his tailored suit, the world seemed to pause for a second. "You look," he began, then stopped, shaking his head slightly. "You look right." Maya turned toward the mirror, meeting her own reflection. "Right for what?" "For this," he said. "For tonight." The photographer directed them to stand close together, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. Every flash of the camera captured what looked like intimacy, his quiet smile, her calm eyes, but under the surface, Maya's pulse raced. When the session ended, the photographer said, "Perfect. You two look real." Those words stayed in her mind all night. You two look real. Later, when most of the staff had gone home, Maya wandered into the rooftop garden where they had dined before. The city lights stretched endlessly below, the hum of traffic like distant thunder. She had grown used to the sounds of this hospital, the steady rhythm of machines, the whisper of nurses, the hum of elevators. But this silence was different. Adrian found her there, leaning on the railing, her hands clasped together. "You should not be up here alone," he said softly. "Habit," she replied. "This is the only place that feels like the world outside." He joined her, standing close enough that she could smell the faint scent of his cologne, clean, understated, expensive. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "She looked better today," Maya said quietly. "Your mother." She smiled more. "She did," Adrian answered. "You helped her believe she still has something to look forward to." Maya turned toward him. "You make it sound like I am part of the treatment." "You are," he said simply. "She sees hope when she sees you." Something in his voice trembled, almost too soft to catch. Maya studied him under the pale light. The confident surgeon, the millionaire doctor who controlled every detail, suddenly looked like a man afraid of losing what little he had left. "Adrian," she said after a pause, "how long have you been carrying this alone?" He gave a dry laugh. "Too long." When he looked at her again, the guarded distance in his eyes had vanished. For a heartbeat, the air between them changed. It was no longer a performance. Maya stepped back first, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do not do that." "Do what?" he asked. "Look at me like that. You made me promise this would stay an arrangement." Quote. His expression flickered, torn between reason and something else. "You are right," he said finally. "This is just an arrangement." But neither of them believed it. The next morning, the first newspaper photos were released. The caption beneath their image read, "Dr. Adrian Cole and his wife, Maya Cole, lead the upcoming Carter Foundation Gala for Cardiac Care." When Maya saw it, her stomach turned. The lie had escaped the walls of the hospital. It was out there now, alive and irreversible. That afternoon, as she passed through the main lobby, a nurse waved at her cheerfully. "Mrs. Cole, the photo looks amazing." Maya forced a smile and kept walking, her pulse hammering. Upstairs, Adrian stood beside his mother's bed, reading the same article. His mother beamed with pride, holding the newspaper as if it were proof that her son's life was finally whole. "You see, Adrian," she said gently, "love heals more than medicine ever could." Close. He looked at her, then at the picture of himself and Maya smiling together. The words that left his mouth were almost inaudible. "I hope so, Mother. I really hope so." As the sun sank behind the skyline, painting the glass windows gold, Maya and Adrian's reflection appeared side by side in the corridor mirror. Two people bound by a contract, trapped in a lie, standing on the edge of something that felt dangerously close to the truth. The day of the Foundation Gala arrived with the kind of tension that sat deep in the air. The hospital's grand hall had been transformed overnight. White roses lined the marble staircase, and a banner stretched across the entrance that read, "A Night for Hope." The event would fund the expansion of the cardiac unit, the same unit where both Adrian's and Maya's mothers were being treated. Cameras were already flashing before the first guests even arrived. Maya stood near the entrance, the hum of conversation surrounding her like a rising tide. Her dress was elegant but simple, the same cream tone she had worn when she first entered this lie. She could feel the weight of eyes following her, admiring the woman beside the famous Dr. Cole. Every smile she gave felt rehearsed, every breath measured. Adrian appeared at her side, straightening his tie. "Are you ready?" he asked quietly. "As ready as I will ever be," she replied. They entered together, hand in hand, their synchronized steps perfectly practiced. Reporters snapped photos, the flashes painting their faces in bursts of white light. A journalist leaned forward, microphone raised. "Dr. Cole, congratulations on your upcoming expansion. And may we just say, your wife looks radiant tonight." Adrian smiled politely. "Thank you. We are both honored to be part of something meaningful." Maya forced herself to match his calm tone. "Every life saved here reminds us why this work matters." The reporter nodded, satisfied, and moved on. As they walked deeper into the ballroom, Maya noticed several hospital executives gathered near the donor tables. Among them stood a tall woman with sharp eyes and a crimson gown, Dr. Serena Hale, one of Adrian's colleagues and, as Maya had quietly learned, someone who had always hovered too close to him. Serena's lips curved into a polite smile that did not reach her eyes. "Adrian, you did not tell me your wife was so lovely." Adrian's posture stiffened. "Serena, this is Maya." Serena extended her hand, her tone smooth. "A pleasure." I was beginning to think Adrian's heart belonged entirely to his patients. Maya shook her hand, maintaining her composure. "Well, sometimes doctors need saving too." The nearby guests chuckled. Adrian glanced at her, clearly surprised by the quick reply. For a fleeting moment, pride flickered behind his controlled expression. Throughout the evening, the speeches began, and the donors praised Adrian's dedication. As applause filled the room, Maya felt her phone buzz in her clutch. It was a message from one of the nurses. "Your mother says she feels better. She is watching the live broadcast." Her chest tightened. She looked up at Adrian, who was preparing to give his speech. For all the rehearsed words and forced smiles, something about the moment suddenly felt larger than the lie. Both of their mothers were watching, both believing in a world that did not exist. Adrian stepped up to the microphone. His voice was calm, but every syllable carried weight. "Tonight is not about me. It is about the people we love, the ones who give us a reason to fight, even when we are tired, even when the world tells us to give up." The audience grew silent. For the first time, the polished facade of a millionaire surgeon gave way to a man simply trying to hold everything together. Maya's eyes stung as she listened. When the applause ended, Serena moved closer, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "To success," she said, "and to keeping our stories straight." Her tone was light, but her gaze was sharp. Before Maya could respond, Serena leaned slightly closer, lowering her voice. "You might want to remind your husband to sign his press forms correctly next time. The dates on your marriage certificate do not match the hospital registry." "Gah!" Maya froze, the smile on her face faltering for half a second. Serena straightened, her expression innocent once more, and drifted back into the crowd. Maya turned to Adrian, whispering under her breath, "She knows." His jaw tightened. "Ignore her. She thrives on suspicion." "Adrian, she will not stop." He exhaled slowly. "Then we give her nothing to find." For the rest of the evening, Maya did what she did best: she acted. She laughed when expected, posed for photographs, held Adrian's hand whenever the cameras turned. But beneath the practiced gestures, her mind raced. Serena's words were like a fuse lit under the surface, ready to explode at any moment. As the event drew to a close, Adrian's mother was brought in for a brief appearance. The crowd stood to applaud her, the elderly woman glowing with pride. "My son," she said softly, holding Maya's hand, "you made me believe in love again." Quote. Maya smiled through the ache in her chest. "He makes it easy to believe," she said gently. Later, as the hall emptied and the music faded, Maya stepped outside to the quiet terrace. The night air was cool against her skin, the city lights flickering in the distance. Adrian joined her, his suit jacket draped over his arm. "You were incredible tonight," he said quietly. "So were you," she replied, "except for the part where your colleague almost caught us." Quote. He sighed, leaning against the railing beside her. "She will not find anything. After tonight, the papers will be finalized. The foundation will have its funding. My mother's surgery will be fully covered." "And what happens after that?" Maya asked softly. "When the pretending ends?" He turned his head toward her, his expression unreadable. "Then we go back to being strangers." She nodded, but her heart disagreed. The silence between them stretched long and heavy, filled with everything neither of them dared to say. Down below, The city kept moving, unaware that two people on a balcony were standing at the edge of a lie that had already begun to feel dangerously real. The gala ended just before midnight, but sleep never came for either of them. The following morning, the hospital was quieter than usual, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath before the surgery. Adrian's mother was scheduled for the operating room at 10 o'clock, and Maya had promised to accompany her until the nurses wheeled her in. Maya arrived early, her steps echoing softly in the corridor. The scent of disinfectant mixed with faint roses still clinging to the air from last night's celebration. She passed the nurses' station, where the newspaper from the gala sat open on the counter. Her own face smiled up at her beside Adrian's, captioned, "A love story that heals." "Come on." She turned the paper over. The lie felt heavier than ever. In the private room, Adrian stood by his mother's bedside, checking her monitors with mechanical focus. The older woman's eyes opened when Maya entered, her thin lips curving into a weak smile. "There she is," she whispered. "My good luck charm." Maya sat down and took her hand gently. "How are you feeling today?" "Ready," the woman said. "Just promise me something." Maya hesitated. "Anything." Quote, "When I wake up," she murmured, "I want to see you first. Not the doctors. You." Maya nodded, her throat tightening. "You will," she said softly, knowing she was making a promise she might never have the chance to keep. Adrian watched from the other side of the bed, silent. The faint morning light touched the lines under his eyes. He had not slept either. When his mother dozed off again, Maya turned to him. "You do not have to do this alone, Adrian." He did not look up. "It is better that way. Distance keeps things from falling apart." She stepped closer. "You keep saying that, but distance is exactly what makes people break." He finally met her eyes. There was something raw in his expression, something fragile she had never seen before. "You should not get attached to me, Maya. After today, everything ends." "I know," she said, "but that does not make it easier." Quote, he looked as if he wanted to say something more, but before he could, the intercom buzzed. "Dr. Cole to operating room 1. He straightened, his mask of professionalism sliding back into place. "It is time." Maya followed him to the door. For a brief second, he paused, turning back to her. "You remember what I asked you," he said quietly. "No matter what happens in there, do not stop me." She nodded, though her heart screamed against it. "I remember." Hours passed. The surgery lasted longer than expected. Maya waited in the hallway outside the operating theater, hands clenched together, the rhythm of her pulse syncing with the soft beeping from behind the doors. Every sound felt amplified: the squeak of shoes, the metallic clatter of instruments, the whisper of nurses moving between rooms. Finally, the doors opened. Adrian stepped out, still in his surgical gown, his face pale beneath the mask. For a moment, he just stood there, unmoving. Maya rose instantly. "How is she?" He pulled off the mask slowly, his voice breaking. "We did everything we could." Her heart stopped twice. Her stomach dropped. "But she is alive, right?" Adrian hesitated. "For now." He walked past her to the observation window, staring out at nothing. The steady surgeon, the unshakable doctor, he looked lost. Maya came closer, her voice gentle. "You should not blame yourself." "She was ready," he said, still staring ahead. "She told me she wanted peace, and I was supposed to let her go." Tears stung her eyes. "You did not let her go, Adrian. You fought for her." He turned toward her suddenly, his voice raw. "That is the problem. I fought, and maybe I should not have. Maybe she trusted me to end the pain." The words cut through her like cold air. She had promised him she would not interfere. But now she saw the truth: he was not a man untouched by emotion. He was drowning in it. Without thinking, she stepped forward and placed her hand on his chest, feeling the tremor under his scrubs. "You are human," she whispered. "You are allowed to break." For a long moment he did not move. Then, slowly, his hand came up to cover hers. "You should not be here," he said softly. "I am exactly where I am supposed to be." He closed his eyes, exhaling shakily. The noise of the hospital faded around them. For that small moment, the world shrank to the space between their hands. A nurse appeared at the end of the hall. "Dr. Cole, she is asking for you." Adrian's eyes flew open. "She is awake?" "Yes. She is asking for both of you." Maya's knees nearly gave out from relief. They hurried back into the room where the older woman lay weak but conscious. Her voice was faint, but the spark in her eyes returned when she saw them together. "I told you," she whispered. Love heals. Adrian bent down, gripping her hand. It was not love, Mother. It was surgery. Quote. The woman smiled knowingly. Then why are you holding her hand, my son? Adrian froze, realizing he was still clutching Maya's fingers tightly. For once, he did not pull away. When his mother drifted back to sleep, Maya stood quietly by the window. The city stretched beyond the glass, endless and alive. She turned to Adrian, her voice calm but certain. You keep saying this is not real, but every time you look at me, I am not so sure anymore. He stared at her, unable to answer. The light caught the gold ring on her hand, and for the first time it did not look borrowed. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, flooding the room with pale, hopeful light. Neither of them spoke again, but everything had changed. What began as a contract was now something else. Something neither of them could name, but both could feel. The morning after the surgery, the hospital felt lighter. The nurses smiled, the machines hummed at steady rhythms, and for the first time in weeks, Adrian's mother was stable. Maya brought fresh flowers to the room, arranging them quietly while the older woman rested. Adrian stood by the window, sunlight spilling across his shoulders. She is getting stronger, Maya said softly. He nodded, his voice low. She asked for you first thing this morning. Maya smiled faintly. She is sweet. I think she believes we really belong together. Quote. He looked at her, almost saying something, but then turned away. Let her believe it. She deserves peace. Before Maya could respond, the door opened. Dr. Serena Hale stepped in, her red heels clicking against the tile. She carried a file in one hand and a look of polite concern on her face. Adrian, she said smoothly. I just wanted to check on your mother. I heard she pulled through. Congratulations. Thank you, he replied, his tone neutral. Serena's gaze slid to Maya. And Mrs. Cole, you must be relieved too. Maya's pulse quickened. Very much, she said carefully. Serena smiled, but there was something sharp beneath it. You know, I was reviewing some patient records this morning and came across an interesting note. It seems your signature appears on a transfer authorization for a woman named Evelyn Carter. Same last name as yours, Mrs. Cole. Coincidence? Maya froze. Adrian's mother stirred faintly in bed. He stepped forward, his expression turning cold. Serena, this is not the time or the place. Oh, but it might be, Serena said, her voice silky. The board should know if personal relationships are affecting hospital decisions. After all, we cannot let emotions interfere with professionalism. Adrian's jaw clenched. You have no idea what you are talking about. Serena arched an eyebrow. Do I not? Because I also found a copy of a marital contract in the legal department's draft folder. Strange, do you not think, for a man who claims to have been married quietly years ago? Maya's heart pounded so hard she thought the monitors might pick it up. Adrian stepped between them, his tone like steel. Leave, Serena, now. She smiled thinly. Of course, but do not say I did not warn you. Secrets have a way of surfacing. She turned and walked out, the click of her heels echoing like a countdown. When the door shut, Maya sank into the chair beside the bed, her hands shaking. Adrian, what if she tells the board? What if she tells your mother? He exhaled slowly, rubbing his forehead. Then we face it. I will take the blame. No, Maya said firmly. She will ruin you, everything you worked for. He looked at her, eyes dark and steady. I would rather lose my career than let my mother know. Her happiness was built on a lie. Maya's throat tightened. You cannot fix this by destroying yourself. I can protect you, he said quietly. That is enough. Cree. Before she could answer, his mother's monitor beeped softly. The older woman stirred and opened her eyes. Adrian, is everything all right? He turned immediately, forcing calm into his voice. Everything is fine, Mother. Go back to sleep. She smiled faintly, reaching for Maya's hand. He always tries to carry the world on his shoulders. Do not let him forget that he needs someone too. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I will not, she whispered. When the older woman fell asleep again, Adrian moved to the door, his voice low. I need to talk to the board before Serena does. Stay here with her, please. Maya stood, fear threading through her chest. Adrian, do not do anything rash. He gave her a small, tired smile. I will do what I should have done from the beginning, tell the truth. She watched him walk away, his white coat disappearing down the long corridor. The sunlight caught the gold band on her hand, glinting softly, as if warning her that the moment of pretending was over. For the first time, Maya realized that love was not the only thing that could break a heart. The truth could too. The board meeting was already in session when Adrian entered. The large glass conference room overlooked the city, bright with morning light, but the atmosphere inside was cold. Serena sat near the end of the table, her expression calm, almost satisfied. The chairman looked up as Adrian closed the door behind him. "Dr. Cole," the chairman began, "we have received some concerning information regarding your personal conduct and hospital documentation. Would you like to explain?" Adrian took a slow breath. "Yes, there was a contract. It was my doing. No one else should be blamed." A ripple of murmurs passed around the table. Serena leaned back in her chair, voice smooth. "So you admit that your marriage is not real?" He met her gaze steadily. "I admit that I asked someone to help me protect my mother's peace. She believed I was married. I let her believe that. If that was wrong, then I will accept any consequence." The chairman frowned. "You understand that falsifying documents could result in suspension?" Adrian nodded. "I do. But please do not punish anyone else involved. It was an act of compassion, not deception." There was silence. For once, even Serena had no clever reply. Meanwhile, down the corridor, Maya sat with Adrian's mother, unaware of what was unfolding. The older woman slept peacefully, her breathing soft. But Maya's mind raced. She could not stay still. Every second that passed felt like another thread pulling Adrian closer to ruin. Finally, she stood. She knew what she had to do. By the time she reached the conference room, the doors were already open. Adrian stood alone before the board, shoulders squared, calm but visibly tired. When he saw Maya step inside, his eyes widened. "Maya," he said quietly, "you should not be here." She ignored him and turned to the board. "If anyone should be blamed, it is me. I agreed to the lie. I signed the contract. Dr. Cole did not deceive me. I did it because his mother was dying and believed her son was finally happy." The chairman exchanged glances with the others. "Miss Carter, are you saying this was mutual?" "Yes," Maya said firmly. "But what started as a lie became something honest. Not on paper, but in the way he treated everyone around him. He saved lives even while he was losing his own peace." Adrian stepped closer, shaking his head. "Maya, stop. You do not need to." She turned to him, her voice trembling. "You asked me not to interfere, but this time I am breaking that promise." The room fell silent again. The truth hung heavy, but it was no longer shameful. It was raw, human, and real. The chairman leaned forward. "We will review this matter privately. For now, both of you should return to your patients." Outside the room, Adrian caught her arm gently. "You should not have done that. I could not let you lose everything alone," she said. He looked at her for a long moment, then whispered, "You just saved me from myself." Down the hall, a nurse rushed toward them, breathless. "Dr. Cole, your mother is awake. She is asking for you and for your wife." Adrian froze. His hand still held Maya's, warm and steady. For once, he did not correct the word wife. They walked together toward the recovery room, side by side, the weight of pretense finally gone. What began as a lie had led them to the only truth that mattered: compassion, forgiveness, and the fragile beginning of something real. When Adrian and Maya stepped into the recovery room, sunlight poured through the tall windows, soft and golden. His mother was sitting up, pale but smiling, her eyes bright with new life. The heart monitor beeped steadily beside her, each tone a quiet victory. "There you are," she said weakly. "Both of you." Adrian moved closer, taking her hand. "How are you feeling, Mother?" "Like someone who has been given another chance," she whispered. Then she looked at Maya and smiled. "I heard everything. You told them the truth, did you not?" Maya froze. "You heard?" "I did," the older woman said gently. "I know what you did for me, and for him. You lied to protect a dying woman's peace. That is not deceit. That is love." Adrian lowered his head, his voice quiet. "I did not deserve your forgiveness." His mother reached out, touching his cheek. "Maybe not, but you deserve to start over." She turned her gaze to Maya. "And you, my dear, promise me one thing: do not let him hide behind fear anymore." Maya nodded, her throat tightening. "I promise." Weeks passed. His mother recovered slowly, and the scandal that Serena tried to ignite quietly disappeared. The board decided not to pursue the matter. Donors even increased their support, moved by the story of compassion that had reached the public by rumor. One afternoon, Maya walked into the rooftop garden, where everything had begun. The lights were still there, swaying in the breeze, but now the air felt lighter. Adrian stood near the railing, watching the skyline. When he turned, his expression softened. "You came," he said. "I always do," she replied. He took a step closer, holding out a small velvet box. This time there is no contract, no signatures, just a question. Maya's breath caught as he opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, glinting in the fading sunlight. Adrian's voice trembled slightly. "This time, do not pretend." She smiled through her tears. "This time I do not have to." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and for the first time it felt weightless, no longer a symbol of lies, but of truth finally earned. As the sun set behind them, the city lights flickered on, one by one. Somewhere below, the hospital continued its quiet rhythm, healing others as two hearts finally healed themselves. Because sometimes, love does not begin with truth. It begins with courage, the courage to tell it.